Oh, great. Amen. It's good stuff this morning. God is so good, and we could sing of his goodness all of our days. Well, if you have your Bible with you this morning, go ahead and grab it. We're going to be in Hebrews chapter 11. We started a series a couple weeks ago through the book, or through the chapter 11 of Hebrews, and we have looked at faith. We've been taking a look at what is faith and how does faith kind of work itself out. What is really not a definition of faith, but what the whole book of Hebrews, or what the author of Hebrews is doing in chapter 11, is trying to describe what faith does and how it should be a motivating factor in our life. You know, you came in here today, hopefully you've come in here and you're in a good spot, right? It's a good day. Maybe it's been a little hot over the last couple of days, but you got a chance to get out there and be at the beach or be in God's creation, and you're just in a good spot this morning. And you're not really thinking about negative things this morning. Hopefully that's where you are. You're just like, hey, this is a good day. We just sang some really great songs. I got to sing praises. It's Sunday morning. I get to take a nap this afternoon. Whatever you're thinking, right? You're just thinking it's a good day. And you're not really thinking about the fact that one day you're going to die. So I hate to, if you're in that good spot, be like, hey, let's have a little reality check this morning. Because this is what's true. What's true is all of us are going to face death. All of us one day are going to die. There are really only two certainties in life, one person said. That is death and taxes. We can be certain that the government's going to get their money, but we can also be certain that we are going to die one day. And I think even in our culture, we're a little obsessed with death. If you were to just look at, do a Google search, like what I did this week, and just say how to live longer, the amount of books and articles and things about how to increase our lifespan is insane. Because we're always like, how can we maybe cheat death, or how can we keep it from coming, and I'm not saying that we're welcoming it, we're like we want to die, but what I am saying is I think we're a little obsessed with that, because it's something we're all going to face, and so we're like, how can we maybe, like some of us are even like, maybe how can I skirt that? Is there a way around that? Right, there are loopholes for taxes, so maybe there's a loophole for this death thing. And indeed, we would see that a lot of people in especially movies and stuff like that, especially villains, I don't know why it's always the villain, is wanting to try to be immortal. One of my favorite series that I've read several times and watched the movies over and over again is the Harry Potter series. And the main evil person, very evil person, is a guy by the name of Voldemort. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about here, right? Peter definitely knows. He's like, yeah, I've read it a bunch of times. Voldemort's main thing, his main motivating factor, is being immortal. His main motivating thing is, how can I live forever? If I die, how can I come back, right? It's all about living forever. And a little bit, I can identify with Voldemort in that regard. Now, how he goes about it is very evil and awful and terrible. But I think we all have deep down that motivation for how to live longer, or how to even escape death. And if I told you today that I have the secret to living forever, to being able to cheat death, this place, and it got out to the public, this place would be filled to the brim, right? Because people want to know, how can we escape death? And I'm going to tell you that there's somebody in the scriptures, the one we're going to talk about today, who did actually escape death. And if we too are going to come and face our death in a good way, then we have to look at this guy Enoch and see what was his secret? How did he get out of this whole thing? And I think we'll, by the end of our time together, realize that even if we can't escape the inevitability of death, that sting can be taken away. As we read God's word this morning and see the secret sauce, the secret to that, let's stand together reading Hebrews chapter 11. It's printed there in your bulletin as well. verses 5 and 6. By faith, Enoch was taken up so that he should not see death. And he was not found because God had taken him. Now, before he was taken, he was commended as having pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. This is God's word. May he add its blessing to our heart this day. You may be seated. What's the secret, Enoch? Tell me the secret. I want to escape death. Please, let me not feel the pain, feel the weight, feel the sting of death. That's scary. That's unknown. That's uncertain. How can I escape this death? And certainly that's exactly what the Bible is telling us here, that Enoch, by faith, was taken up so that he should not even see death. Man, that would be awesome. How do we do that? How do we go about that? Well, I think in order for us to understand how Enoch escaped death, we have to actually look at the Old Testament account of Enoch, which, by the way, is very, very short. So if you have your Bible and you're still with me, Genesis chapter 5, as we flip back to really see what was going on in Enoch's life, right? I mean, you're saying that I can escape death? Like, please, by all means, let's go to whatever verse we have to read, whatever thing I have to do, because I'll do that thing so that I can escape the inevitability of death. And so as we look at Enoch, we're going to realize very quickly that there's not a whole lot written about Enoch. In fact, what we see about this guy is that in Hebrews chapter 11 he's mentioned in the book of Jude as having prophesied about a great impending doom that was going to come, which was the flood, by the way. And then we have his account here in Genesis. And it comes in the middle of that part that you skip over in your reading plan. You know that part that you're just like, oh yeah, there's just a bunch of names, I'm just going to skip over that part and get to the next part? Well, there's something actually in those, by the way. Don't just like throw them out, right? Because they actually do have meaning. And today we're going to see exactly that thing. Because if you read and you look at Genesis chapter 5, you're going to look that it starts off this way. This is the book of the generations of Adam. When God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. And then he goes on to talk about Adam. And then it's almost like, any of you guys ever worked in an office where you just had to fill out a form over and over and over and over again? I mean, that's literally what this is like. It's just like a form. Let's plug and play. All right, this guy, enter name here. Enter number of years lived before he had a kid. Enter that kid's name. Enter the number of years he lived after that. And then it always ends with the same three words, which is the thing that we're so scared of. And then he died. Right? It's the inevitability of death. And we realize that death entered in the book of Genesis when man and woman took of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and disobeyed God, and that cursed them to death. And so what we see is this thing that gets passed on to every single one of us, death. And he died, and he died. And so if you're looking at the form, that's how it goes. Just look at a few verses. Verse 3, when Adam had lived 130 years, he fathered a son in his own likeness after his image and named him Seth. The days of Adam after he fathered Seth were 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. When Seth had lived 105 years, he fathered Enosh. Seth lived after he fathered Enosh 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. And when Enosh lived 90 years, he fathered Kenan, and Enosh lived after he fathered Kenan 815 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. Okay, you get the picture here, okay? You can even say it if you want to. When Kenan had lived 70 years, he fathered Mahalalel, and Kenan, after he fathered Mahalalel, 840 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Kenan were 910 years, and he died, right? Because that is the pattern. But notice something. If we keep reading and we get down to this guy Enoch in verse 21, look at what it says. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he fathered Methuselah. Enoch walked with God after he fathered Methuselah 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Now, what do we expect should be here? And he died. But notice what comes next. Look at verse 24. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Now, it's almost like the author, Moses, of Genesis is trying to say, hey, look, this is the pattern. The pattern is you're going to be born, you're going to live a certain time, you're going to have some kids, you're going to do some stuff, and then you're going to die. And he's saying, but there can be a break in that pattern. And he's saying, look, emphasize here, right? This is different. It's like when you're filling out that form, right, at work, and it just is the same every single time, and then you mess up on a form because it's just a little bit different. That's exactly what's happening here. It's like, listen, pay attention to what's going on here with Enoch. And notice what he did. Notice what faith, the author of Hebrews told us that by faith, Enoch was not, right? By faith, Enoch was taken. Notice what that faith did, right? This is not a definition of faith, but this is a description of faith. Enoch's faith and our faith walks with God. Faith walks with God. You see, walk is not just the idea of, right, I thought as a kid, that it was just like he had some cool long walks, like he went on long walks on the beach. You know how you put that in your dating profile? I like long walks on the beach because, we want to put that in all of our dating profiles. Well, I just thought Enoch was just taking a bunch of long walks on the beach with God, and that's why, that's what it is. But there is something here, because this idea of walking is not just that he was taking these long walks on the beach. It's that he had relationship with God. He had a relationship that was born of his faith. You see, if we have faith and we want to escape all this death, right? If we have faith, then we are going to have a relationship with God. And it's almost like he just walked along and he was like chilling and just going along, and all of a sudden, God took him. He was no more because God took him. Then notice what it goes back to. It goes right back to the same thing. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he fathered Lamech. Methuselah lived after he had fathered Lamech 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. Right? Because that's the pattern. And guess what? That's been the pattern ever since. Ever since Enoch. And so what was different about Enoch? Well, we have to say that the one thing that was different was that he walked with God. He had a relationship with God. And so this morning, if we are going to, in a way, escape the reality of the pain of death, we have to have a relationship with God. We have to have a relationship with God. If you do not have a relationship with God, then death is going to hurt. If we don't have a relationship with God, then death is going to be a terrible reality for us. What he's saying is, if you want to walk with God, if you want to have faith and actually kind of escape the sting of death, then you need to walk with God. You need to have a relationship with God. Some of us in here were like, well, how do I have a relationship with God, Andrew? I really wish that I knew how I could have a relationship with God. I know that I'm supposed to come to church because I'm here today. I know that I'm supposed to maybe read my Bible or something and pray. Is that all there is to it? Is that all that we should do? Is that all that Enoch was doing when he was walking with God and having a relationship with God? Well, no, that's not all that he was doing, but he did certainly have a relationship with God. And what was that relationship? Well, let's flip back to Hebrews chapter 11, and let's read a little more commentary on what this faith was all about. Because if we look at this, we see that by faith, Enoch was taken up so that he should not see death, and he was not found because God had taken him. But look at this little curious phrase at the end of verse number 5 there. Now, before he was taken, he was commended as having pleased God. Oh, interesting. So he had a relationship with God, and not only did he have a relationship with God, and walked with God, his faith caused him to be pleasing to God. You see, faith ultimately is what pleases God. Here's the thing this morning. Some of us have a laundry list of things that we think please God. If I asked you the question, what pleases God, what would you say? You'd say things like going to church, being charitable, right? Singing praise and worship songs, singing hymns, being kind, being a good person. These are all the things that please God. And we say, yes, this is how we please God. And maybe Enoch was those things. But that's not the thing that God highlights. That's not the thing that the author of Hebrews highlights for us as what pleased God. What does he highlight for us? He says in the very next verse, verse 6, without faith, it is impossible to please him. You see, here's what's true this morning. If we're going to have faith, we have to walk with God. But if we're going to have faith, we have to be pleasing to God. And how do we become pleasing to God? Well, it's not by working for it. It's not by doing a bunch of good stuff. It's not by becoming a pastor. It's not by just studying our word every single day. It's not by coming to church, as good as that is, as good as all that stuff is. That is not what is pleasing to God. What is pleasing to God is to have faith in him, to believe that he is. It's not a bunch of stuff that we do. It's not by works of righteousness that we have done. It's not anything that we can do. And so we think, man, if I'm going to please God, then I got to look a certain way. And here's another one. You ready for this? Notice that it's impossible to please God without faith, but here's the thing. It is possible to please other people without faith. And guess what? They're not God. The pastor's not God. People that you look up to are not God. You can fool anyone into thinking you're a good person or that you're a Christian or that you know Jesus or have a relationship with Jesus. You can fool me. Anybody of us can fool one another. And it's not about me. It's not about pleasing me. It's not about pleasing anyone. Listen, here's one of the biggest things that I think that we do. We think that if everyone around us is happy and pleased with the way that we're acting and the things that we're doing, even ourselves, then we're pleasing to God. That is not true. I can make everyone around me happy and still be far away from a holy God. Because it's not having faith in what people think about me that pleases God. It's not having faith in my own self-righteousness that pleases God. It's not having faith, listen, in a way of worshiping that pleases God. It's having faith in God that pleases him. Well, Andrew, I really want that. I struggle with that. I want to escape death. I want all these things. I want that thing to... So what specifically do I need to believe about God? Right? What specifically do I need to know and then believe about God? Well, very glad you asked, because he tells us what we need to believe. Look there with me, verse 6. Without faith, it is impossible to please him, for whoever would draw near to God must believe. And here's what he's going to give us. He's going to give us two things that we have to believe. Two things that faith that pleases God does. Two things that Enoch did. He believed these two things. He believed these two things, and because he believed these two things, he had a relationship with God, and because he had a relationship with God, he walked with him to a point of escaping the pain of death. And here's what he had to believe. You ready? If anyone would draw near to God, whoever would draw near to God must believe that, first, he exists, and that he rewards those who seek him. We must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who seek him. Okay, Andrew, great. Okay, I have to believe that God is, that he is. Like, I just don't need to be an atheist. Is that what he's saying here? No, that's not what he's saying here. Because guess what? The demons believe that God is, and they shudder at it. and you think those demons are pleasing to God? No way, right? There's no way, right? And so what does it mean he is? What does it mean to believe he is? Well, we sing a song about this, by the way, Jason. It's to believe some things about who God is. It's not to just believe that he exists. This is a reference to the Old Testament idea of the I am. The very first time that we hear that phrase is when he starts to say to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But the very first time that we really hear it kind of pushed and kind of how God is kind of relating to that is when Moses is speaking to God through a burning bush. And he asks them, who shall I say has sent me to the people? And he says, just tell them I am has sent you. And so what are we supposed to believe about who God is? That he just exists? Listen, a lot of religions believe that God exists. A lot of people believe that God exists. And it's not good enough to just believe that God exists, because even some of us in here may be what we would call agnostic. Yeah, there's a God up there. I believe he exists, but does he really care? I don't know, right? Does that really matter? No, that's not pleasing to God. It's to believe a very certain thing about who he is. First of all, that he is God, and we are not. Let me say that again. We have to believe that he is God, and we are not. That he is God. That he is the one that has the plan. That he is holy. That he's the one that loves unconditionally. And that the way that he loves is different than the way that I might think love should be defined. But he's God and I'm not. And so what faith does is it trusts God's character. It trusts who God is. It trusts the things that the Bible has revealed about him. That I am has sent me. The I am that's going to deliver the people from Israel. The I am that's going to come and allow them to escape the death angel on the night of the Passover. The I am who's going to bring them through the wilderness, who's going to bring them into the promised land, which, by the way, is a picture of something that happens in the New Testament. Because what happens in the New Testament is the I am shows up again. And he begins to say things like, I am the light of the world. I am the bread of life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And this is Jesus who shows up on the scene. And he begins to show us our brokenness in slavery and sin. The same way that those Israelites felt broken and enslaved in Egypt is the way that we currently are in our trespasses and sins. And the I am wants to step in and deliver us. He's standing at the edge of that tomb just like he was on the day when he called Lazarus out, and he's saying, I am is here. I am the resurrection and the life. Guess what? Jesus said that right before he raised Lazarus from the dead. I am the resurrection and the life. And he yells to Lazarus, come forth. So what are we supposed to believe about who God is? We're supposed to trust his character. We're supposed to trust that his plan for salvation is better than my plan for salvation. That his plan to send Jesus to die in our place, a substitutionary death in our place, that by believing in him, we can have everlasting life. Does that mean we just live forever? No, it doesn't mean that we live forever. But what it does mean is that the very sting, the power, the hurt that happens within death is taken away. Well, Andrew, I'm so scared because it's gonna hurt, right? It's gonna hurt, right? You know, when I was were we still engaged? No, we were just newly married. That's what it was. When Megan and I were just newly married, not newly married. Well, yeah, I guess we were. We were in seminary, and we went to seminary up in Boston. And Megan, we were about to go for a winter break, and Megan had flown home a little bit early. And I decided, right, I had to stay a couple extra days to finish a shift and to do some work, I think. I can't remember exactly. It's been so long ago. Listen, I'm getting old too, okay? Maybe I'll remember the whole detail one day. But she flew down back to Roanoke early, and I was supposed to come a few days later and drive back. just, so we could have a car in Roanoke. And I remember that my love for Megan caused me to, what I was supposed to do is I was supposed to get off my overnight shift after having gone to class and taken all my finals on, I don't know what day it was, and then go to my overnight shift, and I was supposed to sleep for a couple hours and then jump in the car and leave. Or no, I was supposed to leave and come overnight. I think I was supposed to come in the morning. And I decided, because of my love for her, that I was going to jump in the car, grab a Red Bull, and drive the whole night. And I showed up at the house before the sun rose, and I went in and I got to see her because I had been away from her for a couple days. What caused me to do that? What motivated me to do that? Well, it was my love and relationship that I have with Megan, because I loved her so much that I didn't want to be apart from her, that I just wanted to be where she is, that I just wanted to, I would have undergone any obstacle, even it was quite awful driving at night. It was quite awful having to be tired. It was quite awful. But it was, to me, a minor inconvenience for me to be with my love. You see, this is exactly what happens to us when we have a relationship with God and we have a faith that pleases Him. This is exactly what happens to us when it comes to death. What does it say next that we have to believe? That He exists and that He rewards those who seek Him. What's the reward here? Oh, it's the life. It's the everlasting life. It's heaven, right? It's being able to eat what I want and no calories, right? It's able to run around. That is not the reward. Look at me. That is not the reward. Good, great stuff. But that's not it. The reward is being in the very presence of Jesus. The reward is Him. The reward isn't that I got to then hang out and do a bunch of cool stuff with Megan that day. No, the reward was I got to be with Megan. I got to see her. And so we would undergo any kind of minor inconvenience to see the one that we love. And this is the last thing that we have to do. Faith is always pursuing God's presence. And guess what? If we're ultimately and fully bought into the idea that we want to be in God's presence, you know how we ultimately get into His presence? We have to die. And so death is nothing. It's nothing. It's just a step over into God's presence. The thing that we're getting imperfectly right now, the thing that we get to do, and we do feel it, like when we sit on the beach and we just feel God flood us with presence, when we stand here and we sing about how our debt has been paid, and we feel God's presence, or we're with our grandkids and we're just like, man, this is so cool that God is here with me. That thing, that feeling, that thing that's imperfect right now, we get that fully after death. That's the reward. And that should be the pursuit of our life. It certainly was the pursuit of Enoch's life. His faith caused him to constantly seek after God. And in the end, he received a reward. What reward did he receive? He received the reward of the sting of death being taken away. Now, I'm not standing here and going to say, yes, all of us are just going to be translated into heaven if we get really close with God. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that minor inconvenience of death, it becomes nothing. Just passing through because I'm going to see the one I love. I would drive all night to see the one I love. What is this? Death is nothing but a mere trifle when we get to be in His presence. This morning, some of us, we're really struggling with that idea of death. And I just want to encourage you that there doesn't have to be fear. There doesn't have to be fear of what comes next. That you can know with certainty whose you are and that you have a relationship with God. I want to encourage you today that you can have a faith that, yes, walks with God and pleases God, but a faith that trusts who God is and a faith that pursues His presence. and ultimately one day will be in his presence fully.